Is it working now? There we go. There we go. Good evening. How are you all this evening?
Fantastic.
Another week and we're back. The same old stuff, right? I appreciate y'all's faithfulness. I've enjoyed getting to know some of you all, and I really got to enjoy some of you who keep coming back week after week. That's always a blessing. It's always an encouragement to somebody. They come back. Either you're forced to do that or you're getting something out of it, and I trust that you're getting something out of it. Anybody got anything they'd like to report on how well they've been doing from what we've talked about over the last several weeks? I mean, we are now in the second half of that month of July. How you doing on your plan, on your budget? Oh, no. Highly overrated this time of year. What's that? It's still out. Oh, my.
Yeah, because I canceled one of the way too many.
Oh, yeah.
Canceled.
It's supply and demand at this point. Yeah. Yeah. Tomorrow. Okay. Well, fortunately, it's been hot, but it hasn't been as hot as it normally is this time of year. And that's to me, that's been a blessing with or without an air conditioning. I was talking about it in my Sunday school class this morning. It hasn't been as hot as it normally is, but we haven't got into August yet. That's still a few more days away, right?
Still are getting that October.
Yeah, exactly. We'll probably, it's just out of order. It'll probably be delayed a lot through there. Anybody else with a report on their budget and how they're doing? Okay, we're tracking, keeping up with it every week, all right? On track. Where we're not on track, we can make some adjustments. If we wait till the end of the month and we do that, quite possibly the train's already derailed and you can't get those cars back on the track. So it behooves you to do those every week so you can make those adjustments. Anything else that anybody's done? No? Nothing at all. Everybody got a sheet? Okay. Want to make sure that you've got that. Tonight, that one word, protection. What do you think about there? And not guns, by the way. What? Insurance. Insurance. Absolutely. What else? Estate planning. Absolutely. So let me preface this class much like I did last time. Remember last time I told you I'm not an investment professional. I don't do that for people. I have no desire to do that. Well, let me tell you this. I don't sell insurance. I have been asked multiple times to do that because I've got a broker that I send people to. And usually at Christmas time, they take me out to lunch somewhere and give me a little gift card and all this stuff. He said, listen, if you just go get your license for all these people that you're sending to us, whether you deal with them or not, we'll be able to give you some money back on that. I'm like, that's not my desire. My desire is to help people, coach them, teach them on the things that they need to do, let you make the decisions that you need to make. So I am not an insurance salesman, nor am I an attorney. If I hadn't been an attorney, I'd have charged you a whole lot more to be here tonight, all right? You know, they do, they charge you a lot of money to be. My clients, I tell them, I said, you know, when I do an unlimited plan, this isn't like a lawyer's office. I'm not gonna charge you every time I talk to you. And a lot of those people do by the hour to do that. But I always wanted to be a lawyer, just never made it there, all right? Protection. You think about that picture that we had last week, you remember that? We talked about from investments, how do you grow your retirement income? How do you plan for that? How do you move forward with that so that when it comes retirement time, that you're not one of those people that having to eat Cheerios and peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, trying to figure out how you're going to make the house payment, pay all these utility bills and so forth. We've got a nest egg that we're building. We're taking what we've been blessed with over the years. We've been working well to manage that, pick up some of these other lessons. Stay out of debt, get out of debt, stay out of debt. Live intentionally with the plan, think about the things that we're going to need, including retirement, all of that stuff, making it a nest egg. Well, what are some of the things in the nest egg that we need to be thinking about when it comes to protection? And that's small stuff, isn't it? You can see that a little bit better than I can, I think. And there's no particular order here. I just put some of these things down. But if you've bought a house, whether you're working with the mortgage company to pay it off or maybe it already is paid off, don't you think you ought to protect that? A lot of things happen. Now, whether it's an actual house, I should say, you really can't insure your home. The way you're best going to insure your home is through God's word, okay? Husband and wife, family, there's truly the home, all right? But your house, okay? Whether you actually own that house or the mortgage company owns it and you're paying rent till you pay it off, you could be doing something like that. And people say, that's not true. Well, stop making payments and see how true it is. It's your house, all right, that you're one way or another you're paying for. But what if you're in an apartment like we are, okay? Renter's insurance, something like you want to protect the things that you have. What about your automobile, motorcycle, things like that? Absolutely. There's a lot of crazy people on the road today. Absolutely, you want to do it, and accidents happen. What about your health? Now, health insurance is not going to protect your health necessarily, but it will protect you from some of the expenses that you might incur as well. What about your ability to earn, your ability to work? Disability insurance. What about your wealth? Most of the time when people see that nest egg, they're thinking about their wealth, their investments, and so forth. Insurance to protect your wealth. Your possessions. Getting back to your couch and your bedroom furniture and your microwave and all those things that you have. What about your toys? I mentioned motorcycles too soon, right? Motorcycles, boats, campers, things like that that we have as people as what I would call toys. There's nothing wrong with them, but they're not necessities to live life, all right? Our toys that we might have. What about life itself? What about travel? Travel insurance has become something that's become more popular here most recently. Over the last year or so, if you think about 15, 18 months ago, where nobody had ever heard of COVID, everybody had those travel arrangements, whether it was a cruise or an airline ticket or whatever, and then things all but shut down. Some people actually had travel insurance where they were protected. Other companies, some of the cruise lines, some of the airlines and so forth, worked with people because it was out of everybody's control to be able to do that. But what about travel insurance? Protect your investment there as well. Accidentals, just a lot of things. And you notice that dot. There's insurance out there for just about everything if you want to pay for it, okay? Mitigation. Anybody know what that word means? And if you don't, look up at the screen, all right? Because that definition is for your little paper, your handout there as well. The action of reducing the severity, the seriousness, or painfulness of something. The act of reducing the severity, seriousness, or the painfulness of something. Well, how do you mitigate these things? It's through insurance. Insurance, something that you are paying for to mitigate those things as they may or may not come about in your life, all right? Now, without insurance, you're going to find out the severity, the seriousness, the painfulness of something based upon what happens and the time period of when it may happen. Your 1973 Ford Pinto that just got totaled the other day, you probably didn't need any insurance on that. I mean, it's only $150 worth of a car, but you may need liability for that person that you hit to protect you from that. Again, going back to the insurance side. I remember many years ago, probably as a teenager, my dad made this statement: I am insurance poor. You ever feel that way with the insurance? I mean, you've got it coming out of your paycheck. You've got it coming out of your checking account. It's hitting you every quarter. It's hitting you every year, whatever the case, how you've got these things structured of what you're doing. Insurance, insurance, insurance. These insurance people are making a lot of money, but they are now protecting you with these policies when you are insured correctly and appropriately from the seriousness, the painfulness of these events when they actually happen, if they happen. And let's hope and pray that the money that you're spending on insurance is money that you're throwing away, which means you have no need to mitigate and you're protected in those situations. But what do you really need? Now, I'm not going to go through every one of those things that we had listed. I'm not going to go through each and everything that we can think about as well. But when it comes down to it, what do we really need for insurance? Anybody got a guess what the first one might be? Health. Who said health? You said that. Health. Then life. Yeah. Health insurance. Absolutely. That has been something that has been a topic in the United States of America over the last decade plus, for sure. Probably longer, but definitely over the last decade and so forth. And really, because of what they call the Affordable Care Act, which is anything but affordable if you've ever looked at it, okay? Obamacare is what it's known for as well. But health insurance. Health insurance is a necessity. Now, Keep in mind, you hear stuff on the news, you read it in the newspaper, you hear all this stuff of people thinking health care should be free. Health insurance is not the same as health care, okay? And truly, I do believe the United States of America has probably one of the best healthcare systems in the world. And I think it's proven quite frequently when people in other parts of the world, especially those that can afford to do it, leaders, when they get sick, where do they go? Mayo Clinic, all right? Where do they go? The Cleveland Clinic. They come to the United States. And the reason why we've done that is because of the capitalistic country that we've had, the money that's fed into that. Does it need some tweaks? Absolutely. I think what they're doing, I'm getting into editorial stuff, I shouldn't do that. But it is a necessity. With Obamacare, and especially with the generation that we have with the younger people, and I don't mean to single you guys out, but a lot of you folks tend to have the thought that, well, I don't need insurance, health insurance. Wait till something happens. The number one reason for bankruptcy in the United States of America? Medical costs. Number one reason, okay? People can't afford to take care of it. It gets very, very expensive. Anybody know Austin Gardner? Yeah, Brother Austin was just coming out of a drug-induced coma and ventilator about a year ago at this point. I would have hated to see those insurance bills, especially those first ones you get, the sticker shock ones before the insurance does, and you think, oh my goodness, who do I call? You know, what attorney am I going to call to file this bankruptcy thing? But a lot of this stuff going on, it's a necessity. I met a lady today. I know her very well, and I know the one that she was talking about, her son, who's probably in late 20s, probably early 30s, still lives with them, still works a part-time job. And she said he doesn't have health insurance. I said, but he needs health insurance. Yeah, but he can't afford it. He's just hoping that nothing ever happens. He's just not going to get sick. He's just not going to need it. I said, let me know how that works out for you. Now, here's the thing. To my knowledge, he's perfectly healthy. And to my knowledge, people are hiring, right? We talked a little bit about that last week. People are hiring. And I'm not saying he's going to go out and get a full-time job. And I'm not saying that it's not cheap. Don't get me wrong. But at some time, you've got to mitigate that risk of what might be happening in your health, because none of us have any control over our health. The best buy is through your employer. In a group plan, most of you that have insurance and can remember several years ago, that's the best way to go, right? I remember when I left, well, they left me, the company, and I started my business. We knew it was happening. They gave us about a 2-year warning of we were shutting down, and I had already started this business, and so I went into business. And when I changed into that business, my insurance was about $275 a month. Wonderful insurance, and that was full family coverage. I had 3 kids at the house at the time. And then, I want to say it was 2010, I may be wrong, but then Obamacare was brought in. And as a result of Obamacare, and not necessarily the health care policies, but the result of what the demands were of those insurance companies, prices started to go up and up and up and up. And today they're completely out of sight. In fact, if you buy anything from the Affordable Care Plan, healthcare.gov, pretty much what you're getting is catastrophic insurance. So if you get put in the hospital, it'll cover up to this amount, but you've got to pay a copay, typically, $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 per person, yeah, and more for a family. Look at the details of what's going on there. If you're able to be in a position to where you can raise the deductible, anybody know what the deductible means? Okay, good. No, all right. It's your share of coming up front. Most insurance plans, I would venture to say all insurance plans, most insurance plans are going to have you own a part of the issue, all right? So if you've got a thing, typically, in a good insurance plan, some of us older folks might be able to remember this, in a good insurance plan, you might have a $500 deductible years ago, all right? Currently, mine, I think, is $1,300 per person, $2,400 for the family, I think. I'm giving you some numbers. So the point is, when the insurance is not going to kick in and pay until you pay your portion. We would be responsible for the first $1,300, and then the insurance company is going to kick in and pay, and at that particular point, it typically becomes an 80-20 payment. They're paying 80% of the bill, you're paying 20% of it. If you're in a position to where you can take, and a lot of times with our employers and so forth, even if you buy this in the marketplace, you will have the opportunity to buy a plan with a higher deductible. If you're able to buy higher deductible, your per month premium is lower. You're assuming more of the responsibility. Make sense? Okay. Now, in that, let's go back to the one that we were talking about in savings. What was that? 2, 3, 4 lessons ago, right? One of the things that we should be saving for is a high deductible, right? So if we know we've got something like that, it would be wrong to ignore that. But set aside money for that that's going to help you take care of the deductible that you might incur. And again, we hope it's wasted money that we're paying and money that's sitting in our savings for the deductible. Be aware of those out-of-pocket expenses. Kind of like we were talking about right there, that 80-20 rule, what you're responsible for, how much you're going to be on the hook for to be able to pay out of that. If you're in a situation that you have a flex plan, flex care, whatever you might want to call that in your employer, you might want to take advantage of that. Or if you've got a health savings account. Let me stay with the health savings account just a minute. Anybody know what a HSA is?
Savings account.
Health savings account. Anybody know what they actually do? Why they started? What they were supposed to do? Anybody know? A health savings account was where you would actually contribute part of your salary on a tax-free basis out of your paycheck into this health savings account, and the money that you accumulate over time, so long as it's used for qualified medical expenses, is not taxed to you, okay? The intention is, and I forgot the numbers, I think it's like $5,700 a family right now that you can contribute from your paycheck. The intention is that you would put money in there, and the thought of you putting that money in there and seeing that, you're more likely not to go to the emergency room for a runny nose, okay? All right? Oh, my ear's hurting, let me run to the emergency room. Okay? Now, and you're looking at me like, this guy's crazy. I got many examples to show you. Irritates me to no end. Here's somebody, maybe somebody in my family, maybe somebody even in my church, all right? They've been sick all week long. They've been sick since Tuesday. And on Saturday morning, I'm not feeling any better, let me go to the emergency room. Who pays for that? Well, taxpayers, yes, with the Obamacare. But the overall group of insured are doing that. When you've got a health savings account, the thought is you've been able to save this, and remember those deductibles? Because if you've got an HSA plan, you have to have a high deductible, low premium plan. The thought is that you will be more apt to take care of your own health as opposed to doing major medical things and eating at the system financially, if you know what I mean. Okay? That's the whole thought behind it. But you know what most people do with that? They live out of it. The more money you can accumulate in that, the more you insure yourself, the more you mitigate the situation that you're in. If you get to the age of 65 and you've got any, some, or a lot of money in that, it will automatically at that time, because now you're going to Medicare, right? That money will automatically convert to an IRA and you can invest it. Make sense? But I meet people all the time with an HSA, but they have no balance in here. Well, what are you doing? Yeah, we had to take the kids to the doctor. Okay, it's a $35 copay. Work it into your plan to be able to do that. Don't do everything out of your HSA. Allow that thing to grow over a period of time. Flex plan. Flex plan is where, again, tax savings. If you are apt to go to the doctor, you got young kids, maybe you got braces, maybe you wear glasses, those type of things, you know you're going to have those. In some cases now, daycare expenses and so forth. You're able to take a per paycheck deduction, accumulate in your flex plan, and use those dollars for those things, and again, save on taxes with that, okay? It's kind of like a forced savings thing, but you also get the tax savings as well, okay? Used to be, and it depends on employers now. Figure out how much you need before you do that, all right? Don't go crazy with it. Think you're going to need $3,000 and you only spend $800 of it, because with a lot of employers, use it or lose it, okay? We're getting ready probably around the 1st of October to hit the busiest time of the year for medical professionals, doctors, dentists, and the like. Why? Everybody wants to use their flex plan, all right? You call, hey, I'd like to get an appointment. Oh, I'm sorry, we can't see you till like February. February, yeah, we're packed. Everybody's using those dollars before they lose it. Now, the government now, because of their plan, allows companies to roll that over, a portion of it or all of it. Depends on that employer if they do that, okay? Any questions on health insurance? None? Another one we really need, life insurance. For most people. I am not a believer that everybody needs life insurance. Never had, because truly, it's life insurance, not death insurance. You know what most people do with life insurance when they get it? Husband and wife, they've been married for 30 years. Wife dies or the husband dies, and they get a $500,000 policy. You know what they typically do? Pay off the house, pay off the cars, pay off the credit cards, get a boyfriend or girlfriend, and go to Hawaii. And not necessarily in that order, all right? Because it's a windfall to them, all right? That's not what life insurance is for. Life insurance is to replace the income of that individual who is no longer here. Husband and wife, been married I don't care how long, whether it's a couple years, 30 years, whatever the case may be. You've grown dependent upon that income. Your lifestyle reflects that income, and one of you is gone. And that income is suddenly removed. You've got this lifestyle that you built. How do you continue to move on? Well, if you'll have a life insurance policy that it's at least 10 times your annual income, I didn't put that on there, 10 times your annual income, and I would venture to say if you're young and the income earning potential is going to be more, make it for more. You might want to do 15 times your annual income. And while you're young and while you're healthy, it's relatively inexpensive, okay? But when you've got that in place and something happens now, what do you need to do when you get that policy? Because you're now protecting the income that is lost. You've got a 10 times your annual income. Let's say you're making $50,000 a year. You have a $500,000 policy. Your spouse dies. You get the $500,000. The worst thing in the world that you can do is go blow it. It's not death insurance. It's life insurance, because that one and that family that's left behind still has life going on, okay? If you'll find a good, reputable, heart of a teacher investment person who will help you take that money and put that in investments with a good long-term record that are going to grow, hopefully, 10% a year. It means some years it's more than 10%, other years less, but on average, 10% a year. And you put that money in there and you take out 10% a year. Remember, we were getting paid $50,000 a year? We take $50,000 out and those things are in there earning, and it produces $50,000 over the next year, and you take out another $50,000 and it puts in another $50,000. How long can that last? Can last a long time until you get greedy, right? Absolutely. Now, does it work perfectly like that? No. But it helps you mitigate that situation. I encourage folks that I come in contact with this, if you do anything, if you lose anything, and I don't care whether it's a death, a divorce, separation, whatever the case, do not do anything for at least 6 months. One of the hardest things for me to understand, when my dad passed away 2.5, almost 3 years ago this fall, and now immediately wanting to work with mom and help her. But I'm like, nope, big boy, you got to follow your own advice. We're not doing anything for 6 months. You can talk to her, you can educate her, you can help her see what's going on, but we're not going to do anything for 6 months. Because most people, when they get that payout, they pay off the house, pay off the car, the credit cards, all those things to do that. And then they're back to having nothing. Okay? And for a lot of people, they've lost their spouse. And they're living in this big house alone. And they're looking, they're like, this house is too big. Too many memories in this house. For Pete's sakes, I didn't even want the house. He wanted the house, or she wanted the house. Why am I here? Right? Well, you know what? If you've got that life insurance, you do the right thing, and you can maintain those payments, you can do what you need to do. You can sell that house, buy something smaller. You can sell that house, move to an apartment. You can sell that house and move to Boston. I was just watching this old house before we left here. All right? Anybody from the Northeast? I don't want to make fun of you. Well, that's good. That's God's country, Ohio. That's where I'm from, Cincinnati. All right. Where was Boston? There was this guy on this old house, and he was talking about tearing his garage down because they're going to have a big flat level parking area. Like a parking area. You're going to serve coffee out there? And so nobody's from Northeast, right? Because I'm not making fun. I'm just saying, coffee and lobster. That's what they're going to have. This parking area. Anyways, how did I ever get on that? Anyways, the point is, you can move wherever. You can do what you want to do with that money. Does that make sense? Your spouse is gone, but you've still got money to live on, make the decision. You've mitigated with that life insurance, okay? Term life. Anybody in here sell life insurance? I don't want to make anybody mad, okay? I do not believe in all these gimmick things like the next one with cash value life insurance. You're going to pay more for those life insurance policies that have a cash value, whole life, universal life, whatever creative name they come up with this cash value life insurance company or policy. You really need term life. Anybody know what term life insurance is? I shouldn't say anybody. Some of you I know do. Does anybody know what, or don't know what term life insurance is?
Not sure the difference.
Okay. Term life insurance is what I'm suggesting that you buy. Remember, I'm not an insurance agent. Term life insurance allows you to buy life insurance for a determined payout, all right? That $500,000 policy that we were talking about. Either a monthly, quarterly, or annual payments over that 20-year period, 20-year, 25, 30. You can buy it for less, you can buy it for more over that period of time for a set price, okay? Every month, every quarter, every year is the same price for the life of that policy. If you keep those payments up to date, it will pay out the amount that policy's in there. That's term life insurance. The most inexpensive policy that you can buy. Now, the older we get, the health issues that we have, those determine what those numbers are. The older we get, we're 55 years old and we want to buy a 20-year life insurance policy. Well, I'm 55. And as those people who do the actuarial tables, if they're making a bet, okay, based upon the statistics, you stand a better chance of dying over the next 20 years than you did if you were 35 buying that policy. So by virtue of when you buy it, it's going to be more expensive. You're 25 and you get a 30-year policy that will take you to 55. Most insurance companies in here, around here, if you've got a good health record, will say, oh, we'll take that bet easy. We'll take your money because you're not going to die. Actuarially, statistically, they take that money, it's in the pool, and it pays out to people who do die. Does that make sense? Term life insurance? What adds to it is a cash value. Same life insurance policy, get a $500,000 policy, but this time we're going to sell you a cash value, which means a certain amount of the money that you're paying us on a monthly, quarterly, annual basis is going to go into a savings account, all right? A cash value account, and it will grow over a period of time to be able to do that. And if somewhere along the line you get in a little bit of trouble with your credit cards, or you want to take that trip to Hawaii or something a little bit easier, well, you've got a little savings account here that you can dip into. Yeah. And they're making money off of Insulate. The price for those cash value policies are significantly higher than just a term policy because you're buying this forced, hopefully there, savings account. Now, you buy those policies, in most cases, you buy those policies and something happens, somebody dies. You got a $500,000 policy, but you've got $18,000 in this cash value plan. So how much do you get paid out when your spouse dies? No. How would you say? Policy amount, $500,000. Well, what happened to that $18,000? Well, that was part of the policy. So you got to read the fine print, you got to know what's going on. It's more expensive. What you need to do is buy the term life insurance, and the money that you save on the premium amount, invest that through your investments. And you will make more as a result of that as opposed to expecting the insurance company to give you that. See the difference? Term values. I've seen them as low as 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35. I don't know if I've seen a 40-year term policy, but there's all kinds of gaps in there that you can get. Obviously, the younger you are, you want to get the longer. And sure, if you ever want to stop, and I tell people, you become independently wealthy, you don't have any debt, you got your emergency fund saved up, plus you got your investments working for you, your house is paid off, you're living and giving, all right? Do you really need a life insurance policy? I would tell you no. Relatively inexpensive, you might keep it because it's icing on the cake, all right? But you've got those other pieces going for you. Life insurance is not going to do anything until somebody's gone. You want to buy life insurance through a life insurance company, okay? And what I mean by that is, you've got a lot of what I would call full service insurance companies. State Farm, Allstate, Farm Bureau, Geico, Progressive. They insure everything. And they'll even insure life insurance policies. It's been my experience in looking and listening to what people are saying is they pay more when you buy life insurance from one of those full service insurance companies as opposed to buying life insurance from a life insurance company. Hancock, Prudential, Banner. Trying to think what the name of mine is. I don't even know what it is. But again, you're going to, in my opinion, you're going to save money. You also want to look at their rating, all right? You know, you find a great deal and you look at their rating and they've only got like one A behind it, it may not be a good thing. But the more A's or however they rate those things, you might want to make sure that you've got something that's been around. They've got the capital to pay out in that event, okay? I had a man, and it had nothing to do with my business. He was a friend of mine. I actually went to church with him. And when we first met, he started coming to church, and I honestly didn't even know he was married. And we had an event, my Sunday school class had an event at Lake Lanier, and he brought his wife. And she came, and that lady never said a word. I mean, she didn't even say hi. I went home and told my wife, I said, well, I don't think she likes us. I don't think she, you know. I said, I'm going to still maintain my friendship with him to do that. And he kind of fell by the way a little bit, and we still maintain through texting, still talk today. And it was shortly after that, I mean weeks, few weeks after that, where he texted me and he said, listen, pray for us and pray for my wife. Said she's just been diagnosed with ALS and dementia. 57, 58 years old. That's why she didn't talk. It was early onset of that, to do that. I'm like, oh my gosh, I wish I'd have known that. But anyways, kind of helping them through that, and it unfortunately didn't last very long. Okay? I mean, she went downhill very quick. And I won't get into the whole story, but after she passed away, and it was interesting, just before she passed away, my dad was diagnosed with ALS. And he and I developed a relationship, and I'm like, Lord, I see now why you let our paths cross. Because he'd been a huge encouragement to me through all of that with my dad. And so helped me understand what to expect and all that stuff. But one day, after she passed away, we were just having breakfast at Chick-fil-A on a pretty regular basis, every 2 or 3 weeks. I just wanted to spend time with him. And this day I went into Chick-fil-A, and there he sat. And he had these papers and binders and stuff. I'm like, what in the world's he got here? So we got our stuff, and we went back to the table and sat down, and he said, listen, I know we normally talk about other stuff. He said, but I need to talk to you about this. I need to get this off my chest. And he come to find out that when her employer, she worked in the medical field, when her employer found out that she was having symptoms, and she mentioned that to him, they immediately, that day, walked her out the door. I understand that. I understand. I think there's a proper way to do this, all right? I do understand their concern of the possible repercussions, okay? They walked her out the door. He said, we were just in shock. Fortunately, they were able to continue on a COBRA basis with her medical insurance because she covered the medical and for the life insurance. And in his particular case, they were paying for this, most of this, with a credit card, just to stay afloat at this particular point. This hit him hard, okay? And I forget what the amount was of life insurance. I do know what the amount of life insurance is. I'm not going to say it, all right? The life insurance was a big policy. But he said, Parky, here, she's been gone now for 2 months. And he said, I can't get anybody to pay out this life insurance policy. I'm like, what? He said, I've sent all the paperwork in. They acknowledge they have that. They tell me that they're still processing this claim. And so I ask a few more questions, and keep in mind, I don't do insurance, but I know common sense, right? And I know mitigation is what it, and I'm like, no, wait a minute. What we need to do, hear this. And I took out my phone and I did a quick search on something. I wrote one number down. I said, what I want you to do is when you get home, I said, I want you to call this number. I want you to call the Georgia Insurance Commissioner's office. And I want to say Ralph Hudgens was running that. I may be wrong, but whoever it was. I knew people who knew him, okay? I said, I want you to call and just ask them what you need to do to file a complaint. Don't file the complaint unless you just want to. Don't file it. But then I want you to turn around and I want you to call the insurance company and say, listen, I just want to let you guys know we've been doing this for 2 months or however long it's been since I filed this, and I filed a complaint with the Georgia Insurance Commissioner's office. Well, when he left there, he's like, oh man, great. Well, when he left there, he said, I'm going to do that. I thought nothing else about it, okay? But anyways, that afternoon about 3 o'clock, he called me. He said, man, and he's from another country, so he has this act. Man, he said, you're not going to believe this. And I said, believe what? He said, I did that. I called the insurance commissioner's office, and they told me to check on a couple of things and call them back Monday, and we'd file this complaint. And he said, so I thought, well, I need to call that insurance company. He told me to call the insurance company. He said, but you know what? Let me go to her employer first to do this. Then he thought, no, I better not do that. He said, her former employer, he said, let me call the insurance company. So he did. And he called the insurance company. And again, this is way beyond what I told him, but he called that insurance company. He said, listen, I just want to talk to you. And he got a different lady this time, not the lady that he normally did and dealt with. And she gave him the old song and dance, I need to research this and that. He said, well, can you put this in my file that I have contacted the Georgia Insurance Commissioner's Office? And when I hang up here, I'm just going to run by her employer's office, the HR office, and tell them what I'm going through as well. She said, sir, would you give me till 2:30? He said, Mo, yeah, I'm okay. He wasn't making a threat. He was just going to do it. He was just naive. He was going to go do it. She called him back about 2:15 and said, you know what? We're going to send that check out. You should have it by the middle of next week. When the check came, it was for the policy amount that he had paid, and it was for every dollar they had paid for the premium since they went on the COBRA, in addition to the policy payout. It was firing that shot over their bow to simply say, you know what, I mean business with this. And I asked him, I said, how many people do you think just play the game? Just play the game. And an insurance company, we got your money, but we're not going to do this. My point is, be on top of this stuff, know what's going on, know what your rights are, know what you can do to be able to do that. When my dad passed away, Mom and I both were on the phone when we talked to the insurance company. And she's asking questions, and I'm asking questions. I'm asking questions and oh, wait a minute. Okay, somebody knows what's going on here. I'm saying, when do you need this file? When do you need this? When do you need that? And guess what? Very simple process. Within probably 2 weeks, she had her checks. She had 2 policies to be able to do that. Make sense? Make sure that you're insured. Now, I told you I don't believe everybody needs it. If you don't have a family to support, I don't know that you need life insurance. See what I'm saying? I mean, I deal with some older folks, men and women, who have carrying a life insurance policy. I've got a lady right now who her face just flashed in front of me, and her name flashed in front of me. She's got an adult son. He's probably pushing 40, still living in her basement, rarely works, in trouble with the law quite a bit. She's got another one. He's headed down a different path on that spectrum. Let me just put it that way. But she's carrying a $500,000 policy for those boys to have I'm like, lady, you're the definition of crazy, all right? Why would you do that? You're just going to put money in their hands that they're going to plow right through, period of time. Life insurance, shop, shop, shop. Find what you need, shop it, pay the best price. Disability insurance. Do you realize that if you're age 35, in and around the age 35, you are 6 times more likely to become disabled before age 60 than dying before age 60? Stats, actuarial tables, okay? It happens. The problem is, when we become disabled, where do we get the income? Disability insurance. Again, your best buy is through your employer, and a lot of employers will actually give you short-term disability. If you're out for a short-term period, it will cover typically 50 to 66% of your typical income, and you'll have that income coming to you in that short-term basis. Once you typically reach the window of 6 months, they no longer pay, and your long-term disability insurance policy does if you have a long-term disability insurance policy. You really want the long-term disability insurance policy, okay? Your short-term policy, that 6-month window, you know what that can be used with? Emergency fund, emergency fund. Any idea? Emergency fund. Your emergency fund, all right? You got a 6-month emergency fund, and something happens where you're sick, you can't work for 6 months, you've got an emergency fund to be able to use that before the long term would kick in, whether in whole or to cover part of your short-term shortfall right there when you look at that last one, expect to pay 1/3 of your annual income. Long-term disability, all right, that's what you really have to have. You want a policy for that. One important thing, if you look there in the middle, the benefit that comes to you is not taxed if you pay the premium. Your employer pays it, comes out of your paycheck, you'll pay taxes on that when it comes into you. But if you're paying it, you will not pay taxes on that, okay? Some smaller ones here, and literally with the font, all right? Smaller ones, home insurance, all right? Make sure that you have home insurance. Make sure you are going after replacement cost, structure and contents. Replacement cost means, hey, you look at today's standards, okay? You buy a house and that house is worth, you insure it for $300,000, and lumber prices, labor prices and everything. Now to build that same house again, if that house was destroyed, it's going to cost you $450,000. Replacement cost doesn't do it for the $300,000, it does it for the $450,000, whatever it takes to be able to do that. That's the same thing on structure and contents. A lot of times that will not be included. You have to ask for that, you have to dig into that, you have to see that you've got that, because it can be pricey then to be able to do that. And don't insure your lot. You see the things, you know what your lot is worth. I mean, typically what's going to happen to your lot? I mean, occasionally, once every few years, we'll hear about one of those sinkholes, and your lot's disappeared, but for the most part, your lot's going to be there, all right? Automobile insurance, definite. Don't leave home without it, is what American Express says. What I encourage you to do is, again, much like we talked about with health insurance, raise the deductible, lower the premium. $1,000, if you can pay that, if you can set that aside, have $1,000 over there if you need it, $1,000. What it also does is it makes the insurance company say, you know what, the likelihood of them having it or showing me something that is an accident that's not is better or lower than what if they would just, I got insurance, we'll let them take care of it.
Is it deductible then?
What'd I put?
$1,000 deductible, is that what you're saying?
Yes, $1,000 deductible, yes. Minimize the bells and whistles. You can pretty much do anything with your automobile insurance. And I put on their towing and rental. I've kind of changed my tune a little bit about the towing, simply because, or roadside assistance, because it's very inexpensive. And a lot of people do it through their phone companies or through their cell phone companies. Typically cheaper with your automobile insurance to do something like that. But if you don't need it, don't do it, okay? If you've got 3 cars and 2 drivers, are you really worried about car rental? In most cases, we shouldn't, all right? Umbrella in policy, anybody know what that is?
Yeah. Covers you if you get sued.
Yeah, it's lawsuit protection, okay? To have umbrella insurance, you have to have the highest premiums on your automobile. Notice that last bullet under auto, I think it says, don't get just the legal minimums, all right? Several years ago, it was pouring down rain, I was at my office and my phone kept ringing 2 or 3 times. And I know when it's a family member, I have caller ID, I know when it's a family member, I better answer this after about the 3rd ring. And happened to be my wife. She's screaming into the phone that our oldest daughter on her way back from North Georgia University had been involved in an automobile accident right in front of the Dawsonville outlet malls. The client I had happened to be a fireman. I told him what was going on. He said, get out of here. So we left, we parted. I took off up there and got there, and they noticed when they came to the early light at 53 that this guy was acting a little crazy in this vehicle. They go down to the next light at Dawson Forest, and there's 6 cars together running 3 and 3, and this guy was behind them. 6 cars going down through there in both lanes. And this guy decided while they're sitting at the red light, he's going to go right in between them. High on drugs, alcohol, license suspended, wasn't supposed to be driving. It wasn't even his car. He found the keys, that he was staying with somebody else, found their keys and took off in the car, okay? Fortunately, nobody was hurt, thankfully not my daughter, but her car happened to be the first one at the light. The car that they were in had to be insured, number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5, number 6. My daughter's car was number 7. And they had the legal limits in insurance. So in talking with people the next day, I'm just thankful she wasn't hurt. Car was still drivable, it just wasn't pretty. I think there was something going on with the CV joint that had to be replaced. But 7 cars, and that minimum, I don't even remember, this has been several years ago. It's been more than 10 years. I forget what that amount was, but it was, I want to say $25,000 coverage. Is that what it still is? Okay. I tell you to go to the top, don't go to the lower. But the $25,000, the way that car hit those other cars, this one got paid first, this one second, this one. My daughter's car was number 7. And the deputy said, buddy, so I'll tell you what. He said, you do the math, number 6 was a Lexus. Okay, thank you. So we went and got the car fixed, put some parts on it, had somebody do the axle thing, and it was, she loved that car, would love to have it back. But the problem was, don't get the legal minimums, also have uninsured motorists, all that good stuff. An umbrella policy goes back into that legal protection, all right? When you've got automobile insurance, you need to have the top, and when you've got the top of the line for coverage, you're then able to buy umbrella insurance. Picture all of your insurance, homeowners, your automobile, all that good stuff, and it's insured to the max, all right? Now picture some of the commercials that you see on TV. John Foyt, one call, that's all. Who's that guy's name? I forget his name, I can see his face. Huh? Is it John Foyt? All right, but anyway, what's that? Nugent, yeah, I want to say to him, but there's a bunch of them. There's the group in Florida. I love the guy in Florida, you know. Dude can't even drive. License has been revoked. But he gets on there and he sells insurance, okay, and his family. I'm trying to think of their name. But you talk about when somebody's injured, who they pick up the phone and call. One of these people, they're after your stuff. And if you're insured to the max, your insurance is going to cover you to that level. But if you've got net worth, remember that nest egg? That's got a whole lot more in it than what your insurance is. You know who those people are coming after? You. What an umbrella policy does, it covers you. $1 million on top of what you've got, $2 million, $3 million. It covers your nest egg in this litigious society that we live in. It's definitely worth it. I would encourage you to do that. As that says, it's cheap. You know, a few $100 for $1 million coverage. Okay? Talk to your insurance agent. What's that?
Just trying to figure out what these blanks are.
You know what? I'll probably.
Recurring theme of all insurance.
Oh, we're next slide. Next slide. I think. There we go. Options. When it comes to insurance, it doesn't matter what it is. We went down through a lot of things we didn't cover. We didn't exhaust it. Shop. Shop. Don't just go to Walmart. Try Target out. All right. Just don't do Target and Walmart. Make sure you go to Kohl's. You know, shop. All right. Shop. Look at these things. Do that. The best thing to do, and I should say, a reoccurring theme through all the insurance is shop. Shop. Learn what you need. Understand what you need in your own personal protection. Shop it. Make sure you're doing the very same thing. I got that lady, that company that I send people to, they do about 12 to 15 different insurance companies. That's who they work with. The best thing to do is go with a broker. They do the shopping for you. They get your information from you. Be honest with them so they know exactly what they've got. They'll go out and shop that, and they'll come back and tell you what you've got is the best you can afford, or I've got this something better over here of what you can do. All right? It's up to you of what you want to do. Use an insurance broker. All right? Estate planning. And we'll plow through this pretty quick. You know why? Huh? Oh. Yeah, well, it is 10 till 7. Yeah, I know. I hear your stomach growl and all that. No, I didn't. Because no one ever wants to talk about this. No one ever wants to talk about this. And I understand that. But there's a lot to know, and there's a lot to understand. Planning, though, will help your family and you at the right time. My dad died, went to the funeral home to make arrangements. Who do you want to be the pallbearers? Who do you want to sing? My dad had taken care of everything. And my mom, they were together doing this. My mom's got it taken care of as well. Taken care of. My dad was the postmaster in the county they lived in for the last 35 years. And his name was Parky as well. I'm a junior. Everybody knew my dad, okay? So when this funeral home started up, they wanted my dad to come work for them. Why? Marketing ploy. Everybody knew Parky, all right? So it was a marketing ploy to be able to do it. So we sat around the funeral home telling stories about my dad. They loved my dad. I haven't been around a lot of people when they die, but typically it's all business for the funeral home. But when they came into that hospice room that night, those two men sit there and wept like babies. My dad had a testimony to do that. The point is nobody ever wants to talk about this stuff. Nobody wants to plan it. Why? It's not going to happen to me. Nothing anytime soon. I'm young, right? I don't have anything going on. It happens, folks. It happens. Austin Gardner, I told this story to him many years ago. He lived in my subdivision when he came back from Peru. The house that he moved in, he bought from Jeff Shue. Just a few years prior to that, it was on a dreary day. It was in February, right around Valentine's Day. I never will forget it. because it just blew everybody away. They had a little toddler, him and his wife Allison, and they just had twins. Twins were young. I'm talking about weeks old. May have been born in January, if I remember correctly. But they were in the living room one Saturday afternoon feeding the twins. She was feeding one, he was feeding the other. She got up to go into the kitchen to get something. Her heart exploded. Left him with a toddler, set of twins. Hello, life. Yeah, that's the same house that Austin and Betty Gardner moved into when they did that. So come to find out, I think her mom had a history of something like that as well and passed away too, if I remember the story correctly, to do that. The point is, it's not going to happen, right? It does happen. You know what? Mitigation. We already talked about that word, didn't we? Read that thing, the definition again. The action of reducing the severity, the seriousness, or the painfulness of something. You know what? You do that with planning as well, estate planning. Now, again, I'm not an attorney and I'm going to buzz through some of these things, but I would encourage every plan to have these 4 things in it. If you don't have these, I would encourage you to get those and preferably speak to an attorney. A power of attorney, right? Someone that conducts your business for you now and later. Primarily now, right now, because the other one's going to come in when you actually die. But a power of attorney. 25 years ago right now, we were in the process of selling our house in Louisville, Kentucky, and buying one in Cumming, Georgia. Just so happened my daughter had perfect attendance in school. One of the things we were trying to do was get her through school with perfect attendance. Worked about the 8th grade. But we moved over the weekend. So it means I was here to close by myself. In Louisville, Kentucky, they did this 3-page document. Actually found it a couple of weeks ago when we were moving. 3-page document that they filled out that I was now the power of attorney for my wife to transact business in her name. So when it came to that house closing, anybody ever been to a house closing? Yep. I signed her name and my name and the words POA behind it as well. I had double signature stuff because she had given me the authorization, her power of attorney, to speak for her half. We've also done things with license and stuff. When I used to travel a lot, she had a power of attorney on the vehicles and so forth. So if the tag's expired and I'm out of town, she can go get that taken care of as well. A healthcare directive. You want to make sure, and we'll look at these here in just a minute, but a healthcare directive, a will, and potentially a living trust. And the more I hear about it, I encourage a living trust. It used to be, well, it depends on the tax situation. The more I learned about it, not so much. But if you don't have a plan and you're concerned about not getting a plan, don't worry about it. Because if you don't have a plan, it's not a problem. The state will take care of your plan. Don't have a guardian for your young children? Superior Court judge will take care of that. He'll determine, he or she will determine. It all depends on which side of that bed that they get up on that morning as well. There are some people in my wife's family that we did not want to leave our kids with at all. And sadly, there were some in mine. All right? We all have them. We all have them. But who do you want to raise your children the right way, in the nurture and admonition of the Lord? Put a will together. Make sure it's got in there a guardianship. A guardian in the event of your death, or excuse me, a estate plan in the event of your death will award someone guardianship. If you are incapacitated or whatever, I said death and I didn't mean that. If you become incapacitated through probate court, they will award someone guardianship to take care of your decisions that you need to make, or a conservatorship to take care of your assets as well. The state determines who that is, okay? Step back to those 4 things. Power of attorney. It designates someone who can transact your business, okay? Much like I said with the car, in our case with a mortgage, she's in Louisville, Kentucky. I'm here, was able to do her wishes on behalf of that. And it can be specific. So in other words, like for that house, that document that was written up, that power of attorney, is specific to 5035 Ansley Lane, Cumming, Georgia. 30130, I think, was the zip code at that time, 25 years ago. That document is still on file with the Forsyth County Clerk of Courts. That's where I found it the other day. I searched my name and found that there. What it does, it avoids probate in the event of your death as well. Actually, I'm sorry, it avoids probate in the event of your incapacitation. But when you have a power of attorney, it dies when you do, okay? If you have a power of attorney that you can write checks in my name or go conduct business on my behalf, and you go to the bank to be able to do this, and they say, well, you're not so-and-so. Yes, but I have his power of attorney. Next time you go in and I'm dead. And they said, well, how's Parky doing? Oh, he passed away last week. Well, you can't do anything because the power of attorney that you did had died with his death. So that's when you go a little bit farther in this as we get into the will and so forth. Healthcare directive. Anybody remember the name Terry Schiavo? For you older folks, we do. Younger folks, you don't. A long drawn-out case in the state of Florida. I don't even know the circumstances of how it happened, but she was essentially, she was in hospice for, 20 years, I'm thinking. I forget what, maybe it's a car accident or something. I forget what it was down around Tampa. And at some point, her husband went in and said, okay, I want to pull the life support off of her. And they said, well, show us your living will where you have the authority to do that. Well, I don't have one, but this is what she always told me. She didn't want to live this way. Well, sorry, if you don't have that, you don't have the ability to be able to do that. And I don't know how many of you want to live in that kind of state to where you're artificially kept alive. So there was a court battle that ensued. Went all the way to the United States Supreme Court before they actually, I don't know, did she die on her own? I'm trying to remember what, I don't.
Remove the feeding tube.
They did, that was the feeding tube of what they did, so she starved her to death. That's exactly right. I remember that now that you mentioned it. But again, having a healthcare directive will allow someone to make those decisions on your behalf. As you look at that, you can designate who that would be. You can have written instructions of what they should and shouldn't do based upon that. It avoids that probate appointed guardian to be able to take care of you because this person can. And here's the nice thing about Georgia, maybe some other states as well. That document is very generic, okay? If you go to a doctor's office, they can typically give you one. If you go to a hospital or something, they're going to have them there, right? To be able to give you can fill out right there. And then you can also go online tonight and you can pull one down and fill that thing out and make sure you get it legally approved and all that good stuff to be able to take care.
We did that for my dad.
Yeah,
We went offline and had it notarized at a UPS store.
yeah,
Me and my sister was a witness, and we had this healthcare directive, my power of attorney, everything was done.
right there, right there. Makes life so much easier for everybody instead of having to jump through hoops for that stuff. And again, you can go home tonight, do a Google search on that healthcare directive for Georgia, pull that thing down and have it, read over it, make sure you know what you're signing, have that thing available to you. After you're dying, here's where that will piece kicks in. Because after you're dying, it tells who you want to have the authority to speak on and work on your behalf. And secondly, who do you want to get your stuff, all right? There's some people that don't want to get my stuff. You know what they say? He who dies with the most toys? Just leave them to somebody else. Yeah, absolutely. Some people don't want to. No, seriously, if you've got a will, it's going to require you to go through probate, through your county probate judge. Typically, when you've got a will, typically it's very easy. Could cost you a few $100 to be able to probate something, but it's typically very easy if you've got the will document. Too many people don't have the will, which makes it more complicated, more long drawn out, more expensive to go through that process, and more devastating to your family that has to endure this process now. Okay? And then lastly, trusts. A trust. Two different types of trusts. I'm not going to get into one of these. Remember I told you up front, I'm not a lawyer, I'd charge you more. But a testamentary trust and a living trust. And there's a difference in the living trust with a revocable and irrevocable and so forth. But a testamentary trust is something specific that you're trusting, okay? For instance, and here's one of the things I encourage young parents to do when I'm working with them. Have a will and make sure that you have a guardian identified for your children and a trust for your assets. And do not make it the same person, okay? They would have a testamentary trust, which would actually deal with their assets, their life insurance, potentially all that good stuff, the stuff that their children should have. It now goes into a trust, and it's managed by a trustee who is not the same as the guardian. Because you know why? Money corrupts people. It does. And I know you're going to leave them to your sister and her husband. They're going to take care of them, I understand. But then, oh my gosh, we just got $1 million estate. It happens, all right? It's based upon certain actions and what you want to do. That's where that trust comes in. The more popular one is that living trust. I love the way an attorney said this the other day, so I wrote this down. Anybody ever have a little red wagon when they were little? Got one now on my apartment patio. It's like living a new life, all right? Not quite downtown, but it's nice. My apartment patio got a little red wagon out there for my granddaughter. to do that. We brought that with us in case she'd want to go somewhere and she hadn't done anything with it yet. But think about that red wagon when you had it, when you were little. And some of us, I'm asking us to reach way back there a few years. What'd you put in that red wagon? Whose stuff? Your stuff. When you had your stuff in there, did you just let anybody mess with your little red wagon? That is your stuff in your wagon. That's what the trust is. Your stuff. Your living trust is that little red wagon. Your stuff is in that wagon. My mom and dad, and again, didn't want to talk about this to them. But I remember back in the 90s, they told me, they sat me down and said, listen, we're in the process of putting together a trust, living trust. And I didn't know, I mean, I'm a young guy, young kids. I'm like, okay, Dad, I don't even talk about this stuff. That's years away to do this. And he said, well, we're going to do this. He said, we're putting everything that we have inside this trust. Everything, yep, house, rental properties, cars, everything's inside there. And so if I pass away, it's your mom. Your mom really doesn't own it. It's in the trust. The trust owns it. And you of all your kids you're going to be the executor of the trust when both of us are gone. Okay? When my dad passed away, nothing. Remember, everybody knew my dad in that small town. We went to the bank that week. We did this. Everybody was saying how sorry they were and this and that. I wasn't. Don't take that wrong. I saw my dad's last 3 years where he couldn't do anything. And I knew he was walking on streets of gold then. I wasn't sad. I missed him. But they keep telling us that. But they never said, you know what, you can't write a check on that account. You can't go look at that safety deposit box. You can't do this. You can't do that. Why? Because it had a trust. Everything on the trust. Mom, when she went to sell a car or two, all she had to say was, here's the trust, and I'm executing what the trust says to be able to sell this. No problem. No problem whatsoever. Versus just a will, when you have to go through the probate process, and literally, they can come out of the woodwork with your heirs to claim something. But if your will is airtight, you don't have to worry something about that. A will can avoid the probate process. You can change it at any time with these trusts as well. I don't want to confuse those. A trust will avoid the probate process. You can change it any time as well if you want to do something like that. Okay? A lot of things in there. It's going to cost you a little bit of money to make this happen. Let me tell you one thing I would highly encourage you with all this legal stuff. Work with an attorney. Make sure every I's dotted and every T's crossed. So you can sleep at night knowing that your plans put in place of what you want. This is not my story. It was told to me. I was at a meeting with an attorney one day and he shared this story down in Florida. A lady, she had met this man. They weren't married. She conceived a child. Between the time that the child was conceived and right after he was born, she found out who this guy really was. And I think it would be fair to say scum of the earth. Wound up, I want to say, in a federal penitentiary with no hope of ever being released. Never any contact with his son. She lived in South Florida with her son. She had a will. She had developed a will for her son. She had an insurance policy on herself, and she was going to make sure her son was taken care of. I want to say it was $1 million policy. He was telling this story. $1 million policy, and she had this will that she had crafted on her own to make sure that everything was taken care of. And one day in Miami, something happened, and somebody broadsided him in a car, killed her instantly. Legally, because of that will, illegally, immediately, those assets that she had transferred to her son according to the will. But her will wasn't airtight. All the I's weren't dotted. All the T's weren't crossed. Because they say that child lived for about 30 minutes. And at that particular point, there was no will. And as a result, that person, I think in federal penitentiary, low life based on what he was accused of and what he was convicted of, inherited that $1 million and him in prison. All because saving a few bucks, getting a will done. That's why when I tell people all the time, I'm tight. Okay, let's just be honest, I'm tight. But if you've got a lot of money, and most definitely if you've got young children, get to an attorney, an estate attorney, okay? Not somebody who does criminal defense, not somebody who does real estate closings, all right? I had a lady sit in my office, she worked in a county real close to here. She worked in their children's service things, and we were talking in my office one day about probate. And she said, well, tell me what that probate means. What do you mean by that? Well, like, ma'am, you're an attorney. She said, well, I don't deal, I didn't take that in law school, but I never paid any attention to it. I'm over on this side of the law. Oh, thank you very much. I wouldn't go to a foot doctor if I had a brain issue, right? Makes a lot of sense. But when it comes to it, every attorney's not just an attorney. Go to somebody who specializes in estate planning, okay? Insurance and planning ties right back into personal finance that we've been talking about over the last several weeks. It protects your assets and it protects your family. Proper planning will convey your desires and what you want done at the time of your passing, making it easier for those that you leave behind. As I just said, make sure that you use an attorney. Not sure why that went off. Make sure that you use an attorney. I guess that was the last one. That's why it went off. All right? Or she's telling me, you're done. All right? And that could be it as well. Any questions that I can attempt to answer? What would you say is the most important thing coming out of those slides tonight? Plan. What else? Be specific. Good. What else? No right or wrong. Shop. There you go. Going back to my being tight. Frugal. My wife says I'm cheap. I'm like, come on, give me a little more credit. Frugal. Okay, frugal. Clark Howard's cheap. Yeah.
Don't leave things to chance.
Excellent. I didn't expect that to be said, but I think that kind of just sums it up. Don't leave things to chance.
I just had a question about
Yeah.
the long term with Jada having a stroke in 19. Of course, we had the short term with the doctors that she works with and works in the medical field. Now, of course, it's long term. We've got great attorneys that are working with to get the disability. Would you even have a clue of how long that one would take?
Forever and a day. Forever and a day. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And would you say what year?
19.
Okay, so relatively recent, okay? Yeah, I mean, it just depends. Listen, you've got a gap now because of COVID that, that's going to delay that even farther than that. And I'm hearing, when it comes to disability at all, and you've got an attorney, all right? That's the key for disabilities, making sure you've got an attorney. Don't try to fight it on your own. Yeah. You have to spend some money. I know specifically, I can see this couple in my mind. She was disabled. I don't know exactly what it was, but the longest period in the world. I mean, the condition of their house started to go down because they were just trying to get by. Again, the lifestyle and her working and stuff. Then all of a sudden, she got disability, and it was retroactive to a certain point. And then you saw them coming in, painting the house, putting a new roof on, putting gutter, and it was like, okay. That makes sense because it takes really forever and a day. You're dealing with government bureaucracy, okay? Stay the fight, and I'm sure your attorney's giving you good information of what to expect. Now add another 15 months or so on top of that as well because of COVID. Yeah, it takes a while. It takes a long time, okay? So be prepared if you have to go down that path as well. One thing I didn't talk about is long-term care insurance, okay? And I would encourage you as you get closer to age 60, might be something that you want to look at and have. And what that does is that, if you're on Medicare, Medicaid at that point, and you don't have long-term care insurance, that will take care of you being in a nursing facility. But there's a lot of things in there based upon your wealth and your assets and timing and all that good stuff that it's going to cost you with some of that stuff to be able to do that. Long-term care insurance will prevent that from happening. And at the same time, it will help determine a better place for you to be as well, okay? There is a difference from some of the Medicare facilities and a nice long-term care facility as well, okay? That's with long-term care. Depending on, a lot of people, this was sold back in the late 80s and early 90s as something, a lot of people, young people, I even thought about it myself and paying so much, pay all that money. And the likelihood, statistically, of you needing that at that particular time wasn't as great as what you needed the disability for at that time. And so it's going to be a little bit more expensive the older you get and you sign up for something like that. But if you've really got a history, family issues with that, it's probably something in your best interest to do that. And again, if you just want to be proactive as well to do that. Long-term care, I just didn't get into a lot of that. A lot of different options there as well. And again, that same word applies, shop, 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 a lot of providers.
You're saying that if you get this long-term care insurance, you should get it, it's less money if you get it younger?
Well, it is, typically,
5 years?
well, typically they sell it to young people, get into this and get this, and I don't know what the prices are, but $35 a month and you're 30 years old. Well, the likelihood of you needing that over the next 30 years at $35 a month is somewhere between slim and none, all right? Like life insurance. Now, the older you get, the more expensive it gets because you're getting closer to saying, well, this is probably a reality as opposed to just taking the money from somebody. But that adds up over a period of time. I don't know what the math is, $35, what, $500 a year or something like that. Any other questions? Good questions. If not, next week should be our last week. Don't jump up and down, you're in the sanctuary, all right? All right. Next week, hopefully, we'll do that, and we will wrap up this whole session. So come back with your questions prepared that you've got as well, and we'll wrap up that. I meant to tell you guys this last week, and I'll tell you this week, all right? I am a coach, financial coach. I am not here to sell you coaching business, all right? But I will tell you this. One of the things I do is offer a free consultation. It's a 45-minute consultation. We do it in my office, we do it video, whatever works for you. I go through a series of questions. Everything is confidential that we talk about in there, and I turn around and share with you my assessment, what I think you need to be doing. I'll share with you what I do as a coach, what that would cost, all that good stuff. And by virtue of you going to this class, make sure you remind me because you get a 15% discount off anything that I tell you as well, or any program that I share with you. Make sense? So I want to make sure you're aware of that. I'll try to remember to tell you that again next week. I meant to tell you last week, so you know how that works, right? I'm getting older, all right? Anything else? If not, can you dismiss us in word of prayer tonight? No? You don't do that. We'll let him do it then. Take it.
Father God, Lord, I thank you for having us come here tonight, Lord, learning how to be better stewards of the money that you've given us to use for your kingdom. Lord, we ask that you keep us safe as we go on our way this week, Lord, that we would live lives